right. So Michael just started back to school, right? And I noticed his teacher, she's really nice, but she's a little odd. She calls all of her quizzes quizzicals. I'm just waiting to see what she calls her tests.
That's the best one you've had in a while.
Good. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Graveyard. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Adam.
And my name's Matt.
Now, pull up a tombstone or settle into your casket and get comfortable, because this is Graveyard Tales. All right, everybody, here we are again. Matt, how you doing tonight, brother?
Well, I'm doing pretty good.
Good.
How about you?
I'm doing all right. I just quickly threw Taco Bell down my neck, so if I burp, I'm going to try to cut it out. You did it last week. I was able to cut it out of the main episode, so maybe it's my turn this week to do it.
Man, now back when we were in the same room, this would have been a problem.
Yeah, right. All the bodily functions that you'd have to air out the room for 10 minutes from.
Show up, man. It's Taco Bell night.
Yeah. Oh, crap.
Light a candle.
Right. All right. So real quick, we want to say go check out Podbelly at podbelly.com. You can find different ways to record a podcast if you're thinking about recording, or if you just kind of want to up your game on the podcast that you've got, go check them out, or to find other shows that you might be interested in listening to, go to podbelly.com. We'd like to thank tonight's sponsor, AMC Shudder. We'll talk more about them later, but it's a great time of year to be getting into Shudder if you have not already.
Yeah, it's the perfect time. We're rolling towards Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, and if you can't find that horror movie, that suspense thriller that you've been just dying to see, on any other way, check out Shudder. I'd almost guarantee they got it.
Absolutely. Speaking of Halloween, there's 3 weeks when this episode drops. There's 3 weeks left until Halloween. So we want to say, invite your friends, your family. If they haven't subscribed to Graveyard Tales yet, tell them to go ahead and subscribe, because this is the time of year that we thrive. This is our favorite time of year, and Matt and I just kind of come alive. And get your family in. Let's grow the Graveyard family here around Halloween. And
Ashley takes Adam's debit card away when he goes out, so that he doesn't come home with new house decorations.
Yep. It's a sad reality, but it's true. It's I'm limited to a specific amount of money I can spend during this time of year. So,
hey, I got a new chandelier for the foyer.
We don't have a foyer. We can get one.
It's black with like green candles.
Right. And it's like, here's my allowance for the week. I can either eat or I can go buy this Halloween thing. And I'm fat, so I like my food. It keeps me from buying Halloween stuff. Speaking of Halloween, the night before Halloween, on October 30th, we are going to be doing a live stream on Facebook. So we'll post, if you haven't liked our Facebook page or joined our Facebook group, go do that, because that's where we're going to stream this show, and that's where we're going to tell you what time it is and how to get on there and everything like that. So October 30th in the evening, if you can't make it to the live stream where we'll be answering questions and telling stories, and we've got a couple cool things to talk about and get your comments and opinions on. If you can't make it, it will be recorded and you can go watch it later. But Matt, some big news. 4 days after this episode goes live, it's our 3-year anniversary, October 13th.
3 years.
Can you believe it?
No, I can't. It's been amazing.
It has.
And And honestly, the reason we're still doing this after 3 years is because of all of you guys.
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
And I think we've got some of the best listeners in the podcast world.
We really do, except for those two people.
You guys show us more love than we ever thought we deserved. So,
yeah, right.
We really do appreciate it. We're glad we made it 3 years. We're looking forward to many, many more.
Yeah, however many more. Our topic list keeps growing, so you got to put up with us for many more years to come, I do believe. But yeah, like Matt said, thank you guys. We wouldn't still be doing this if y'all didn't share the graveyard and find so much enjoyment out of our bovine scatology and our sense of humor. We wouldn't have been able to keep doing this. So, it's become a big part of both of our lives and our families' lives. And, we got to thank our family for putting up with us doing this on a weekly basis, because it takes up a lot of time just to record and edit and research and all that. So, it started out as like a passion project, a thing that we did for fun. And it's become, it's still fun, but it's become a thing that we look forward to, but we have some seriousness that goes along with the research and the telling of the stories and stuff like that.
Yeah. We said from the beginning, if all the people that listen are our family and friends, it will be fun to do.
Right.
And the fact that so many of you guys have gotten on board and joined the graveyard and enjoy what Adam and I do, it's just amazing to us. And we're so appreciative. You have no idea.
Oh yeah.
That you give us the support, in so many different ways, you guys give us support, when we see your comments, we see you sharing, we read reviews, and, so many of you donate financially to the show. We can't thank you enough.
Yep. Just the simple thing of you guys getting on there and sharing a tweet or a Facebook post or something saying, I love these guys, they're hilarious, those kind of comments, those make our day. And Matt and I will screenshot them and send them to each other when we see them. So, so, hey, did you see this? Somebody likes us. Yeah.
Have you seen this?
This person actually likes us. Look, they didn't talk bad about us. But before we get into it, Matt, I gotta tell you a thing. We went to the storage building yesterday to get out our Halloween stuff, and we record this in advance. So don't think I'm slacking and putting it out 3 weeks before Halloween. This is like 5 weeks or something before Halloween. And, we got a good amount of time before Halloween, and I'm already decorating. But we went to our storage building to dig out our boxes. We got big totes full of Halloween stuff that we, have to store off-site because there's so much of it. But we get there, and I'm walking down the hallway to get to our storage building, and I'm like, Ashley, do you smell that? And it's like putrefaction and rot, and it smells like a decaying body. So I'm standing there in front of our storage building wondering if it's a rat or do I need to call the cops? Because I watch too much true crime stuff to not think, okay, this is a storage building, not on the main road, what could be in this? You see these things. People use storage buildings for everything, right? Mm. So they found storage buildings with bodies in it. So I'm thinking,
sure,
is there a guy is there somebody down here decaying in the thing, And
maybe
I didn't call the cops. I just the whole time was hoping it was a rat, and we were holding our breath trying to get the stuff out and all that. But maybe I should have called the cops. I don't know. But
I don't know, man. That's kind of freaky.
It is, right? I don't know. It was weird, to say the least.
Of course, if you call the cops and it is a rat, and they're, then you're going to really feel dumb. And, that 9 times out of 10, they're going to come and they're going to smell it and they're going to go, we'd have to get a warrant.
Yep.
Or
and they'd have to go through
all these people.
Yeah. And by that time, the smell will be gone. And if it's not a rat and I do call and they find a body, then I'm the rat. So what, you know, what? There's no winning here.
Yeah. Somehow there's going to be a rat involved.
Exactly. Also, one other thing I was, it kind of ties in with the rat thing, and you'll understand why here in a second, but we're sitting watching TV, and I got this thing several years back, and I finally found it and started doing it again. It's one of these little hand exerciser things.
I thought you had like a mini pair of nunchucks for a minute.
Yeah, I wish. They don't trust me with them. But this is like one of those grip things, and it's I've got a 150-pound and a 200-pound. This is the 150-pound. And so I'll sit there and, you know, work the hand out and everything. Well, I'm sitting, you know, doing this while we're watching TV, and I notice everybody gets really quiet, and I look up, Ashley's staring at me, Michael's staring at me, and Henry, our dog, is staring at me, and I can't figure it out, but then I realize, can you hear that?
Yeah.
It's doing this, and I guess Henry thinks it's a mouse, and we're trying to watch TV, and I'm just being a jerk, and I thought I should share that because I have to apologize. So I'm apologizing publicly to Ashley and Michael for squeaking during our show, but that kind of, I thought about that when we were talking about the mouse.
Yeah.
But all right, so get off the BS there, Matt. Why don't you tell us what already? I mean, you know, we've gone 11 minutes already, so tell us, what are we talking about tonight, brother?
Okay, so tonight we're gonna try to break your brain a little bit.
Broke ours.
So we're gonna talk about the theory of the multiverse, and if you haven't heard that term before, you can probably figure out what it means. It's this whole idea that we're not the only universe,
right?
And that there's other universes out there, maybe an infinite number of universes, either so far away from us there is no chance we would ever see it or anything from it, or right on top of us and happening at the exact same time.
Right.
You know, so this sounds like another one of these, oh, well, this is kind of a cool idea. It is a cool idea. But believe it or not, science feels like there is a possibility that this is true.
Right.
And, you know, this is not a conspiracy theory. This is not some wacko idea. This is something that scientists, physicists have looked into and have considered. Now, it's all theoretical, but it is very interesting. And tonight we're going to talk about the theories of it, but we're not going to try to just overwhelm you with the science, because honestly, researching this, I got overwhelmed. I told Adam, you know, my head hurts, man. It's like, this is so far over my head. And you dig down into this stuff, and you're looking. When the article would have a break in the page and it had equations in there, I'm like, okay, this is more than I know I can handle.
It was worse than our time travel episode, and if you remember,
way worse. We
broke down some Einstein theories in time travel, but this was heavy, to say the least. So, you know,
with Adam and I, you know, we're always, and we were talking about this a couple of weeks ago. You know, this whole idea that there's other universes, whether they're, you know, right along with ours, or they're, you know, so far away, we would never have any possibility of knowing they exist. Either way you look at that, it's kind of fun to consider, because we kind of try to work some of the other things that we've talked about, for example, time travel, into how this may fit into the possibility that those things exist.
Right.
And again, we're going to go back to, you know, Neil deGrasse Tyson, who said, you know, the universe has no responsibility to explain itself to you.
One of my favorite quotes of all time.
Yeah, things are going to be the way they are, whether we believe it or not.
Or understand it or not.
Yeah, and we may not be able to prove it. We may not be able to show it, but that doesn't mean that it's any less true.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, there's a lot of theological arguments against this idea, but I don't necessarily think that it has to be. And we're not going to hammer that. We're just going to kind of present this out to you guys like we always do and see what you think. But if you've already heard this much of the show and you're going, this is a bunch of bull, I'm going to skip it. Listen to this example that I got from a documentary on Multiverse and see, and then you keep that in your brain as we talk about some of this stuff, because it will kind of make you go, well, I guess I can see how this would be a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I want you to imagine you're a fish. Okay. And you're living in a lagoon and you're swimming around and there's other fish and there's other sea creatures and you've got all this, this is your life. This is what it is.
Happy little life.
This is your universe. This lagoon is your universe, and you have no idea what's going on above the surface of the water.
Mm-hmm.
You have no idea. There's so much more, but yet your entire universe is this little lagoon. Okay? Now, all over the earth, there are little lagoons and ponds and oceans and lakes and all these bodies of water with fish and, water creatures, from microscopic organisms to catfish the size of Volkswagens.
Mm-hmm.
They're everywhere. And to each one of those bodies of water, that is their entire universe. And they have no idea that any of the other ones exist.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can imagine, you snatch up a fish and you take it home and you put it in an aquarium. You have just created a interdimensional portal for this fish.
Right. It's an alien abduction.
I was enclosed and everything was weirdly shaped and colored. And next thing I know, I'm in a whole different universe.
Right.
But
it's a good analogy because that in and of itself, you got something like a fishing lure that drops into the pond.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's a UFO to us. It's a weird thing to them that picks them up and drags them out. So
yeah, catch and release is a fish's alien abduction.
Yep.
Can you imagine the stories? You won't believe what happened to me.
Yeah. Look, Jim, I got a hole in my lip to prove it.
The Travis Walton of fish.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. But when I heard this example, when I heard this analogy, I thought, okay, again, as a human being, are we so arrogant or closed-minded that we believe that we know everything? And
yep.
I'm not saying that anybody's out there going, hey, we know everything. But I think that when something is presented like this that seems so far outside the box, a lot of people will take that stance.
Yeah, they do.
And
they go straight cynical.
Adam and I's stance, for the last 3 years has always been, can you just open up a little bit and consider the possibility?
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about it and consider it, whether at the end of the day you believe it or not. Let's use this 1.5 to 2 hour episode to be a little less cynical and to be more open-minded is kind of our whole stance,
Yeah. Yeah.
About life too.
So like I said, we're going to get a little sciencey, but we're going to have fun with it too. So Adam, let's roll into multiverse theory.
All right. So I found this in an article by Andrew Zimmerman Jones, who's a math and physics expert, and you can find his link to his website down in our sources, along with all the other sources that we went to for this information. And what we're going to do, we're going to read some sciencey stuff, and then we're going to talk about it. And we're going to read some sciencey stuff, and then we're going to talk about it. So to find that sciencey stuff, go down into our sources, and you can read along with us, or you can kind of dive deeper, because there's some stuff we didn't grab because, you know, it just too heady for us. But you may be smart enough to get it, where Matt and I are just way too stupid to figure this out.
If you're a physicist, this might make more sense to you.
Or this whole episode will make you cringe if you're a physicist.
Right. And, oh my God, these guys.
If it hurts you that bad, then maybe we can have you on another episode to kind of explain it correctly next time. But,
That's right.
From this Jones guy, he's a math and physics expert. He says the multiverse is a theoretical framework in modern cosmology, which presents the idea that there exists a vast array of potential universes which are actually manifest in some way. So a bunch of universes that are actually physical and there in some way. Says there are a number of different types of potential universes. The many worlds interpretation of quantum physics, brain worlds predicted by string theory, and that's BRANE worlds, and other more extravagant models. And so the parameters of exactly what constitutes the multiverse is different depending on whom you speak to. So before we get into the types of theoretical universes and multiverses out there, we need to look at something that we looked at in our time travel episode. We kind of need to look at it again. And I found this article from an independent researcher named Brandon Sloan, and it talks about black holes. And you'll see kind of where I'm getting with this. But black holes are thought to exist when a sufficiently compact mass collapses on itself. So general relativity predicts that a black hole will form in this situation, and within the region defined as the black hole, the gravitational attraction will become so strong that even light cannot escape. So we know that about black holes, right? They're so massive, nothing escapes a black hole. But not to diverge too much, this isn't in the notes, but I saw a thing that was talking about we may now suspect that stuff does escape from black holes because you can't keep packing that much mass into one black hole and it not grow exponentially. So why are these black holes not growing exponentially and taking over the universe? Well, probably because they're excreting that matter in another way or in another position, and they found furry black holes which have strands of matter coming out from them. That's what they're actually called, is furry black holes, and it's like it's shooting out strands of matter that it's chewed up, basically. So it chews it up and spits it back out. Well, it could also be spitting it out into another universe, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. There are three types of black holes. There are stellar black holes, supermassive black holes, and intermediate black holes. Well, in simple terms, we can think of incredible mass that only covers a small region. Let's think about the relationship between mass and gravity and get a better understanding of why the gravitational attraction is so strong. Now, black holes consist of three layers: the outer and inner event horizon and the singularity. Well, imagine an unfathomably hot and dense phenomena of space-time where the standards of physics breaks down. This phenomena exists in the inner region of a black hole and is referred to as a point of singularity. So that in the point of singularity, that's where everything we know about physics goes out the window.
Ceases to exist.
Yeah. Nothing we know of happens in the singularity. Well, at the point of singularity, it is impossible to predict physical behavior. This opens up the possibility that after singularity, the forces that we study, such as gravity and electromagnetism, may not exist. So if one of these forces were non-existent or altered within our universe, we would not exist in our current form. This is where the idea of a multiverse comes into play. It is widely believed that our universe was once contained within a gravitational singularity. Rapid expansion occurred, and next came inflation, creating our present day universe. Now, could quantum fluctuations result in the creation of what we consider to be the Big Bang? So it's saying everything is in that tight little singularity. Nothing physical that we know of exists. Well, then when it expands and bursts, all this other physics starts taking place. We start having gravity. We start having, the atoms and everything that we have that make up our universe. So each little black hole could have spawned another universe.
Yeah, and you bring up the Big Bang, which is a big part of this. And whatever background you have, Big Bang's baloney, whatever. Again, open up for just a little bit.
Yeah.
So with the Big Bang, physicist Neil DeGrasse, he says that the Big Bang is kind of a misnomer, that it was more or less like a big expansion. Mm-hmm. That it wasn't this explosion or anything, that it was just this essentially a ball of light that just expanded at this super high rate of speed.
Right.
And it just kept growing and growing and growing. And that is kind of what the idea of the Big Bang theory is that it just expanded so fast, and here was the universe. And so we think about, okay, sounds okay. We can get behind this. But why would we think that this was the only one?
Right, exactly.
And Neil DeGrasse goes on to explain, what if there were other Big Bangs? And there's evidence that there could be. Not only that, an infinite number of Big Bangs, or as DeGrasse explains it, this rapid expansion.
Right.
And we know that space is expanding. We know our universe continues to expand.
Well, and here's a thought I had, and see what you think. If black holes were the originator of our universe, we get down to that point of singularity and then it expands and woof, it creates our universe. We know of several black holes in our visible universe, right? So why would there be several? What if the black holes that we see are the backside of another universe?
Yeah.
So it goes woo, right? And all we see in our universe is the black hole and the singularity, which pulls stuff in.
Yeah.
Is it pulling stuff in and going out into the other universe because this is the backside of what we can see, and everything on the other side, we can't see it. Light doesn't bounce out of there for us to see what's in a black hole. Yeah. So what if everything on that other side is a whole nother universe? And our universe in their universe is just a black hole. They see the backside of our universe as a black hole, and they think, maybe they know better, but maybe they think, that's just a black hole, nothing escapes. So stuff like meteors and things that go flying through, our universe, come into our solar system and then leave again. What if that stuff being pulled into a black hole from another universe, shooting out of the black hole that we see and coming into our universe, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
I know
theoretically it's as possible as anything else, right?
That's right. Right. Theoretically it is. But digging into this stuff, it's funny because you get into this stuff, it'll make you throw rocks at a flat earther.
Yeah.
They'll be like, how can you possibly believe this?
Right.
I mean, but when you really start digging into it, you're like, okay, I can see where this is a possibility. We're looking all over our universe at stuff that we really can't explain why it is. It's not what it is. I mean, science understands a lot about stars and, the galaxy and black holes and and what they are and how they act, but it's the why they are that is so hard to explain.
Right. Because even on other planets, the physics that we have, they exist, but it doesn't work like it does on Earth.
That's right.
You know, some planets it rains diamonds because of the makeup of that,
right.
you know, that planet. So we may know a lot about it, but we don't understand why that's happening. So we still got a long way to go, Matt, but we got to look at the different types of multiple universes that science thinks is plausible. These are the theories that suggest we live in a multiverse. And I found this on space.com. So very good website, I think, you know, to talk about space stuff. We go to space.com.
Can you imagine getting that domain name?
Oh, they had to have gotten that in the early 90s when it first came out, you know. Right. First able to buy domains. They're like, I want space.
Yeah. You know, knowing somebody like, you know, 10 years into it is like space with a 3 instead of an E /
yeah. Right. All right. So the first one we got is infinite universes. Now, scientists can't be sure what the shape of space-time is, but most likely it's flat as opposed to spherical or donut shaped, and it stretches out infinitely. But if space-time...
That's a flat universe.
Right. Flat universe
flat
theory. Right. Well, we can start the flat universe theory group. I've always wanted to start a group like that. So
yeah.
Well, it says if it's flat and stretches out infinitely, you know, that's kind of the theory that it's just space-time is a flat line and has no beginning, has no end kind of thing. But if space-time goes on forever, then it must start repeating at some point because there are a finite number of ways particles can be arranged in space-time.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you look far enough, you would encounter another version of you. In fact, infinite versions of you.
Right.
Some of these twins will be doing exactly what you're doing right now, while others will have worn a different sweater this morning, and still others will have made vastly different career and life choices. Because the observable universe extends only as far as light has had a chance to get in the 13.7 billion years since the Big Bang. You know, we can only see 13.7 billion light years out. So the space-time beyond that distance can be considered to be its own separate universe. In this way, a multiturd. I had that this morning. That's not what this is.
That's what Taco Bell's going to do to you.
Exactly. That'll be tomorrow morning. But it says in this way, a multitude of universes exist next to each other in a giant patchwork quilt of universes. Space-time may stretch out to infinity, and if so, then everything in our universe is bound to repeat at some point, creating a patchwork quilt of infinite universes.
Yeah.
So this is a good theory. It's like, you know, mathematically, let's say you have, you know, 4 quarters, and you're trying to figure out the heads tails ratio of them. There's only so many combinations of that you can get to before it starts repeating. That's what it's saying is happening with the particles in our universe. So at some point, the particles are going to rearrange to create another me and another you. The choices will be different, but there will be another me and another you because statistically, there has to be.
Yeah, eventually it's going to come around. Now, I mean, we're talking about, you know, numbers that are, you know, ridiculously large.
Right.
You know? I mean, but, you know, theoretically, you know, these things are changing so rapidly that, like Adam said, eventually you're going to see a pattern emerge where things begin to repeat. And, you know, if we're talking about 14 billion years, the odds are in that amount of time that something has repeated. And like Adam said, just, another Matt, another Adam, another podcast, whatever.
Right.
And that's just our little, window right here in the graveyard. You think about, the entire universe, things repeating and repeating and repeating. How many more universes would there be? Like we said, infinite number.
The podcast in the other universe, instead of graveyard tales, is cemetery stories. But,
yeah.
But, Matt, you and I were talking about this theory several weeks ago without knowing that this was the theory, because we got to talking about this exact thing of where you can only see 13 billion years out. So we look and we see a star and we gauge that it's 13.7 billion light years away, right?
Yeah.
That star could have died out by now because the light would still travel to us. It could have died out a billion years ago. But we were talking about what if that is the wall. That is our universe's wall and our cutoff point. And we can't see past that. And the other universe can't see past that wall either.
Yeah.
Now granted, people say, oh, well, if you're on another star further out, then you could see, say, 10 million light years out, you could see 10 million light years further. Maybe, but maybe not. Maybe that's the definite stop of our universe, and that's why we have not been able to observe anything past that.
Yeah.
And that's what this infinite universes theory basically says, is that all around us, there's other universes, but there's a stop, and we can't see into that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that whole, we get into the whole idea of, what could potentially be on the other side, if we can see this much, or at least we believe that our universe is this way, and this is what we got, even though it's vastly huge.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of hard to wrap your head around the idea that there's another universe that's just as large on the other side. But what Adam and I were really discussing is, what if this is really just our perception? What if our universe is actually much, much smaller than what it appears to be, because we're looking almost like, it's like you're looking in a mirror at something behind you. You're looking at what is going on this side of the universe, because here we are. Man, I'm confusing myself. I'm getting so much into it. It's just this idea that, maybe this is the aquarium that we're in. And when we look out, we can see, look at all that out there. What is all that? What's beyond that? We can't really tell, but let's go toward it. All right.
Yeah.
As far as we got, wall. Man, we can't get any further than this. But we see evidence that perhaps there's something on the other side.
Right. So are we technically seeing into another universe is what you're saying.
Exactly.
Like the planets that are 13.7 billion light years away, maybe cut that in half, and that's the end wall of our universe. Yeah. And we're actually glancing into another universe. And that's possible. We wouldn't be able to get there without some type of wormhole or something like that. Exactly. We may never know because we can't travel that far, but if we could, we would find a wall and we could see through it, is what Matt's saying. But we can't ever reach it because it's another universe.
Yeah.
And that's highly possible.
We're not even, we're talking about, getting a man to Mars,
Mm-hmm. Cosmically, that's like going up the road to Walmart.
Yeah, exactly.
We're having trouble doing that.
They're still thinking, how would we get a manned craft to the next planet?
Mm-hmm.
Much less to the end of our solar system.
Right.
well, that right there is a challenge in and of itself. So even considering going beyond that, at least in probably our lifetime, our children's and our children's children's and our children's children, it's not going to happen.
Yeah,
but that's not going to keep people from looking and considering what would happen if, and that's what makes these theories so intriguing, is because scientists are using, advanced math to determine, okay, we've got some evidence that there's something beyond us, and we don't know what it is. It could potentially be an entire new universe.
Right.
And what would be beyond that? And we're thinking, if you consider, we're looking, when I always think about, what's out there, I always in my head have this model of the solar system, and all the planets are just kind of semi lined up on one side, even though that's not really how it works. But you get what I'm talking about, and you just kind of keep going out, and you get Jupiter and Saturn, and you get to Pluto, and you're like, hey, I'm out here, way out here. And that's how you go out. Okay. It doesn't really work that way, but so if you think about, our solar system as a kind of a big ball, what's straight up, what's straight down, what's 10 degrees to the right of where we're looking, another universe, possibly.
Well, and that leads us right into the next theory, is the theory of bubble universes.
Yeah, there's a method to my madness.
Right. Good.
The king.
Good
of
segue. Yeah. So this says, in addition to multiple universes created by indefinitely extending space-time, other universes could arise from a theory called eternal inflation. Now, inflation is the notion that the universe expanded rapidly after the Big Bang, in effect inflating like a balloon. Now, eternal inflation, first proposed by Tufts University cosmologist Alexander Vilenkin, suggests that some pockets of space stop inflating while other regions continue to inflate, thus giving rise to many isolated bubble universes. Thus, our own universe, where inflation has ended, allowing stars and galaxies to form, is but a small bubble in a vast sea of space, some of which is still inflating, that contains many other bubbles like ours. And in some of these bubble universes, the laws of physics and fundamental constants might be different than in ours, making some universes strange places. So ours, because it has stopped, it allowed physics to take hold and planets to form and all that stuff. And in other universes, they're still experiencing the Big Bang because they're still inflating, and so ours inflates and stops. Well, then the one sitting right here, think of bubbles in a sink of, or a bubble bath.
Yeah.
You've got some bubbles that get real big, some bubbles that are small, and they all kind of bubble up together in this big mass of smaller bubbles.
Yeah.
And so you've got a big layer of bubbles sitting on top of the water, and that's basically the theory of the bubble universes, is they're just everywhere. The one we had before was all straight line, lined up, going out indefinitely. This is a big pile of bubbles, some bigger than others, some smaller, some pop, and, that's the big,
and then there's a black
Big
hole.
Bang. Yeah, and then there's a black hole in the middle of these universes.
Yeah. And with this this inflation theory and the bubble universes, as these bubbles continue to move, because if you have two objects in space, they will begin to move away from one another. And as these bubble universes move away, there's a gap between them. What goes in the gap? Another universe, another bubble can appear and takes up the space. And then everything begins to move away. Those bubbles move away from the other bubbles, and then boom, there's another universe. And so we're constantly just moving away from one another. And that's, that again, that idea, we know that, space is expanding, that everything is moving outward. And, so if we know that's the case, there's evidence to show that that's the case. This idea is one that has teeth. We keep moving away from one another, and then bloop, here's another one. And like Adam said, the idea that in another universe, our laws of physics may not necessarily be the same thing there. I mean, we already know that, inside, the black hole, physics as we know it ceases. That whatever happens there is, all bets are off. We can't predict what's going to happen there. What if another universe is very similar to that? What if gravity is totally different there, or does it exist at all? It's one of those things that there's just so many things to consider that it's another thing that just boggles the mind, that there could be an entire universe and nothing works like it does here.
Right. Exactly.
Everything works totally different, not opposite, just different.
Yep.
Everything works. They have their own rules and laws of physical science and what would be possible.
Mm-hmm.
But the bubble theory, really, this inflation cosmology really took off in the 70s and 80s, when physicists first began to introduce this idea. Alexei Stravinsky, Alan Guth, and Andre Linde were three of the main physicists that worked on this and came up with this theory, and it's constantly changing. And I actually was able to find it was more or less like a panel, interview where, these guys are just, it's from 2013. They're just sitting there and talking about it. Just like Adam and I would, except they're way smarter than us.
Yeah, I was going to say, they actually know what they're talking about.
Yeah, Stravinsky, is at the Landau Institute for Theoretical Physics. Alan Guth, is Cornell University physics professor. Andre Linde is at the Lebedev Physical Institute. These guys are pioneers in the field of physics.
Right.
And this idea of cosmic inflation was, their baby. It does explain the origin of large scale structures in the cosmos, quantum fluctuations in microscopic inflationary regions. Yes, I am reading that. That is not something I could come up with on my own. But it's magnified to cosmic size. So the smallest thing in the universe can be magnified to something beyond our imagination. And what they're saying is these are the seeds for the growth of another universe. These little things that begin to magnify and get much, much larger, essentially a new bubble.
Right. So let's go ahead and move on to the next idea. And I got a lot to say about this idea after we present it, because this is the one I subscribe to the most. This is parallel universes. Now, this says another idea that arises from string theory is the notion of brain worlds. That's BRANE. Parallel universes that hover just out of reach of our own. This was proposed by Princeton University's Paul Steinhardt and Neil Turok of the Perimeter Institute for Theoretical Physics in Ontario, Canada. The idea comes from the possibility of many more dimensions to our own world than the three of space and one of time that we know now. In addition to our own three-dimensional brain of space, other three-dimensional brains may float in a higher dimensional space. Our universe may live in one bubble that is sitting in a network of bubble universes in space. Now, Columbia University physicist Brian Greene describes the idea as the notion that, quote, our universe is one of potentially numerous slabs floating in a higher dimensional space, much like a slice of bread within a grander cosmic loaf. In his book, The Hidden Reality, from 2011, is where he talked about that. Now, a further wrinkle on this theory suggests these brain universes aren't always parallel and out of reach. Sometimes they might slam into each other, causing repeated big bangs that reset the universes over and over and over again. And like I said, this is the one that I subscribe to the most, because I feel like this explains a lot of the weird phenomena that we observe on Earth and in the universe.
Yeah.
And some of the ideas that I had are, okay, aliens. Aliens are actually interdimensional and exploiting paths where our universe touches or is super close to another. So like they said, it's a loaf of universes, and each slice of bread is a different universe. Mm-hmm. Now, aliens have found a way to go from they're in, one of the loaves right next to ours, and they figured out how to, exploit that path, whether it be a black hole or, just a wrinkle, or they figured out how to connect the two through technology, and they're actually coming into our universe. Or another theory is that cryptids could be from another universe and they wander into ours accidentally, or to hunt. So you think about Bigfoot and Nessie. Why do you not see them all the time? Whatever. Could it be that these animals, whether they could be smart and know that there is an interdimensional hole here and they can jump in it, they come to our universe, and Bigfoot, hunts, gathers berries and stuff in our woods, and then he goes back, and that's why he disappears, or you don't, you can see him 1 minute and then not see him the next. Same with Nessie.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. Nessie too, we're looking at, a lake, and, we can't find
where does it go
there, but yet there's all these sightings. She comes and goes through this, portal, for lack of a better term, from one to the next,
where the universes are touching.
Yeah.
And to me, I know I'm not the only one that's going to say that has said this next part, but to me, this next part kind of solidifies this theory in my mind as to why I think this is probably the most likely scenario, and that's dark matter. Now, dark matter is a component of the universe whose presence is discerned from its gravitational attraction rather than its luminosity. Dark matter, it says, makes up 30.1% of the matter energy composition of the universe. The rest is dark energy, that's 69.4%, and ordinary visible matter, which is only 0.5%. Now, it was originally known as the missing mass. Dark matter's existence was first inferred by Swiss-American astronomer Fritz Zwicky, who in 1933 discovered that the mass of all the stars in the Coma cluster of galaxies provided only about 1% of the mass needed to keep the galaxies from escaping the cluster's gravitational pull. The reality of this missing mass remained in question for decades until the 70s, when American astronomer Vera Rubin and W. Kent Ford confirmed its existence by the observation of a similar phenomena. The mass of the stars visible within a typical galaxy is only about 10% of that required to keep those stars orbiting in the galaxy. So here's my thought on what that is. Could dark matter be how we observe another dimension touching or pressing down on our dimension?
Yeah.
So we only observe it as a gravitational pull, but it's actually like a dent in our bread slice that's caused by a dimension resting on ours. So you've got, let's say your loaf is a little out of whack, right? So you've got one piece of bread here, but the other piece of bread is slid down a little bit, and the corner is pressing on that slice. You're going to get a little dent, right? Because the crust is harder, so you're going to get a little dent in that thing.
Yeah,
so
or the sack boy, put it on top of the potatoes.
Yeah.
And so now everything is not exactly lined up and even.
Right. And it's pressing in weird places. You've got a dented slice here and a smush slice on the end. But what if dark matter in our universe is actually evidence of one of these other brain worlds sitting above or below ours that's pressing down on it. We can't see the dark matter, right?
Right.
So we just infer it by, subtracting the mass of the stars and, that's there. Well, what if the reason there is gravity around a star or gravity in an area to hold our planets and everything in this line is not dark matter? It's because there's a dent from the other universe pressing into ours, and everything kind of collects around that. Mm-hmm. Like you stretch a sheet out and you press down on it, things are going to collect gravitational wise around that dent. What if that's another world pressing on ours?
Yeah, no, this is one that I like because it kind of fits my idea of how other universes would work.
Exactly.
That they're not so far away that we would never reasonably have interaction with them, that they're so close that we have regular interaction with them and we don't realize that's what's happening.
Yeah, we just don't interpret it as that.
And, when you start to think about odd places on the planet, when we talk about, the Bermuda Triangle or, the Bridgewater Triangle,
mm-hmm.
All of these areas where very odd things seem to happen. And it's like
gravity hills where gravity is a little bit different at certain spots.
Yeah.
There's some place in the U.S. that gravity seems a little bit weaker. Mm-hmm. So you can, they say, throw a ball farther or something like that. Yeah. It's another anomalous spot.
You weigh less.
Yeah.
Significantly less.
Mm-hmm.
And when we talk about the things that we see, especially like in the Bridgewater Triangle, where you have Bigfoot sightings, you have ghosts, you have alien and UFO sightings, all of that concentrated into one area. Either you're going to tell me that everybody that goes in there goes nuts,
right, and
hallucinates, and this stuff happens, or there's a bump right there. There's something there that it's thin. It's the fingerprint that pushed one part of, this slice of universe into ours.
Right.
And it's easier for other things to pass to and from. And, what that works for things like, UFOs and Bigfoot and things like that. But you're thinking, what, a ghost? Do ghosts go through puddle? No, but imagine the amount of energy that would be there. So you have this strange energy here. And now it's giving what we would think from the spiritual realm enough energy to manifest. And
it's kind of like a magnet.
Over and over again. And, that to me, if we're going to think about theoretical explanations as to why those places are such hotbeds, this kind of works.
Yeah.
It really kind of works. You've really got to open up your mind to this, folks. But,
Sure.
But I mean, come on. I mean, there's too many people that have experienced things like this in these areas to just go, yeah, nothing's happening. Okay.
Right.
Well, let's theoretically come up with an explanation. I like this.
Yep.
I'm with Adam on this.
Think about this too. This is another thing. You have all these masters of different religions and practices, right? And they say you ascend, throughout your life, your different incarnations, you ascend up the ladder basically until you reach the top Grand Master status and you've ascended, right? Okay. So what if each slice of bread, let's say you take that loaf and you stack it on its end, not laid out sideways, long ways, but short ways where now it's taller than it is long, right? So what they could be talking about is theoretically each life, if you do good, you ascend up in a universe to the next universe. And at the top, that's your highest ascension. That's where the quote unquote gods are from. You know, if you want to talk about the old gods like the Anunnaki and stuff like that, they're from this top layer, right? They've lived through their lives and they've got the most knowledge they can have.
Yeah.
Well, each universe is like a different life for you.
Mm-hmm.
So we start out down at the bottom crust loaf there, the heel that nobody likes.
Yeah.
And, you know, each life we go up a little higher in this basically brain world stack until we reach the top. And that's our final destination, what we're trying to get to. But we don't know it because we only have the recollection of our one slice of bread.
Right.
Until we die. And then we move to the next loaf of bread up and we start all over again. But these masters in different religions that understand you've got to get to a higher plane of existence kind of thing. What if they figured it out and they actually know what they're working for? The rest of us don't. We're just going through this by luck.
Right.
I heard someone also say real quick that heaven and hell are different universes sitting on top of our universe.
Right.
That's why they say you go down to hell and you go up to heaven.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it is. If you're bad, you ascend down a layer of universes. And if you're good, you get to ascend up a layer of universes.
Yeah.
And like we've always said, just open up. Let's go with us.
Right.
We're not trying to get religious or anything like that. We're not trying to debunk or bunk anything. We're just discussing. So go with us.
Yeah. I mean, and that I like this idea. What I was going to say is we have no idea of knowing if this existence is the heel, if we're at the bottom, if this is the beginning for all of us that are sitting here listening to this show right now, if we're on this journey and we don't even realize
level
it.
1. Yeah.
What if we're somewhere in the middle?
Right.
Or what if the middle is where you start?
Yeah.
And Adam's right. You go either way. It's like, well, if things didn't work out, for you so well here, maybe you go down and there's a different universe and you're in this different universe and you work to get back
Inferno.
Here. Yeah.
Dante's Inferno, there's several layers of hell. So could that be each layer beneath us?
Yeah.
Of universes.
But I think, when you bring theology into this, there's this whole idea that there's a being that would determine, your ascension, or, what's the opposite of ascension? Declension? Descension? Yeah, I guess it is.
Yeah.
Wow, I feel
ascension and dissension.
Of course it is. Why couldn't I come up with that word?
Because we're talking about something that's using all of your brain power.
Man, my brain is leaking out of my left ear. But again, that's an idea that, there is a supreme being that's making that determination. And that's not necessarily the case just for Christianity. I mean, we're, a lot of religions, that this is how it goes. And again, we're not getting on the bandwagon with one or the other. We're not saying, we're not religious or we are. We're just saying that this is not an idea that is completely foreign when you start applying, these theories to, whether it's, religion, reincarnation, time travel, anything.
Mm-hmm.
You can kind of put one of these theories to make it kind of plausible.
Yeah, you can make it fit.
Yeah. I mean, but consider this, when we went back into to our episode on reincarnation, people were having these memories of being a person centuries ago, not necessarily a bunch of memories of, well, I was Cleopatra and then I was George Washington, and then I was Albert Einstein, and now I'm this schmuck.
Mm-hmm.
It not necessarily. It's like, okay, so you have memories of being a slave that helped build the pyramids, 1,000 years ago. What were you doing in between?
Yeah.
I don't have memories of that. Well, maybe that's because you were in one of these other universes doing something different.
Sure. Yeah.
Maybe you were in a whole other universe where you could fly and zip around, and you left that one and you're back in this one again.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And you're like,
you came back
for whatever reason, something clicked with you that made you go, oh, I have all these memories of doing all this other kind of stuff. Maybe you did. You know, maybe you don't remember the other one until you go back to that universe. Maybe you float back and forth.
Sure.
Who knows? But again, the ideas are infinite. But like you can see now why I said this kind of hurts your head after a while.
Oh yeah. All right, Matt. Let's move on to the next one because we're already over an hour in, and we got a ways to go.
All right.
So the next one is daughter universes. Now, the theory of quantum mechanics, this says, which reigns over the tiny world of subatomic particles, suggests another way multiple universes might arise. Quantum mechanics describes the world in terms of probabilities rather than definite outcomes. And the mathematics of this theory might suggest that all possible outcomes of a situation do occur in their own separate universes. For example, if you reach a crossroads where you can go right or left, the present universe gives rise to two daughter universes, one in which you go right and one in which you go left. It says, quote, and in each universe, there's a copy of you witnessing one or the other outcome, thinking incorrectly that your reality is the only reality, Green wrote in The Hidden Reality. Now, the daughter universe theory was formulated by Lee Smolin of the Perimeter Institute for Theoretical Physics in Waterloo, Canada. In 1992, he proposed that universes might reproduce and evolve rather like living things do. On Earth, natural selection favors the emergence of, quote, useful traits such as fast running or opposable thumbs. In the multiverse, Smolin argues, there might be some pressure that favors universes like ours. He calls this cosmological natural selection. Now, Smolin's idea is that a mother universe can give birth to baby universes which form inside it. The mother universe can do this if it contains black holes. Now, a black hole, like we talked about before, forms when a huge star collapses under the pull of its own gravity, crushing all the atoms together until they reach infinite density. In the 1960s, Stephen Hawking and Roger Penrose pointed out that this collapse is like a mini Big Bang in reverse. This suggests to Smolin that a black hole could become a Big Bang, spawning an entire new universe within itself, just like we talked about a minute ago. If that is so, then the new universe might have slightly different physical properties from the one that made the black hole. This is like the random genetic mutations that mean baby organisms are different from their parents. Now, this raises the question, is reality real? Australian mathematician Hans Moravec developed an experiment in an effort to debunk many worlds theory called quantum suicide. Now, quantum suicide was developed as an experiment that connects a person to a fatal weapon and a machine that determines the angular momentum of protons. At 10-second intervals, the quark or the spin value of a new proton is recorded. If the many worlds theory is not true, the experimenter's chances of survival decrease after every quark measurement until it essentially becomes zero. The many worlds theory would suggest that in some parallel universe, the experimenter will always survive, thus achieving quantum immortality. Hans Moravec had succeeded in creating an elaborate fantasy of an experiment to debunk what he thought was a fantasy in the idea of parallel universes. Now, this theory, the daughter universe theory, gives rise to a question that Ashley brought up to me the other day when we were discussing this episode. Because you have the option to go right or left, you go right and boop, another universe pops up where you went left, right? Mm-hmm. You decide to put on a shirt in the morning. Well, the two shirts you were looking at, you pick this one, the other one picks another one, right? Yeah. Boop, there's another daughter universe. What if, because of that, we have deja vu, where we are actually seeing thoughts of ourself in another universe having done that already because of a choice that was made previously by that universe and not ours. It ended up there first.
Yep.
And now we hit it and we go, whoa, deja vu.
Yeah.
It's been not here before. Yes, because you have in another universe, and that's what deja vu is. It's us seeing ourselves doing the same thing in another universe right before we did it.
Yeah. Man, that is something I have not considered. That's really cool.
I didn't either. And she brought that up and I was like, holy crap balls. I'm talking about that because that blew my mind. Maybe we should have her on here.
I love that idea.
Yeah.
I don't know that I'm necessarily in love with the daughter universe theory as a whole.
Sure.
I mean, because we're talking about one individual over a lifetime creating billions of universes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and we're talking about millions and millions of people on this planet alone, and every single decision that somebody makes, it's splitting off into another universe.
Oh yeah.
It's I don't like it because it's way bigger than what my pea brain can comprehend.
I feel like it would make the world a big Charlie Foxtrot.
Yeah.
Instead of, the not the world, but you know what I mean? Everything that exists would be a giant cluster if this were the case, because there'd be so many things popping up all over the place and there would be no order.
Yeah.
It just, like you said, I don't like this one as much as the other. That's why I like the brain worlds theory.
It's far too chaotic. But when you're talking about, scientists like Stephen Hawking, that idea of chaos, they like to embrace, that there's no control
entropy
over whatever's going on, that the universe, is going to do what it's going to do, and there's no way to predict it. And so, it's chaos. It's like I always go back to Jurassic Park, when Jeff Goldblum's character is trying to explain chaos theory. He said, if you drip this drip of water on your hand, it's going to roll down. If you do it over and over and over again because of small imperfections or movements or whatever, it's never going to take the same path. It's never, ever going to repeat. That's chaos. So that's essentially what this is saying. You're never going to have the same thing. You're going to do one thing, and another universe is going to do something that's the polar opposite of it. And that's going to lead to even more decisions and more splits, and everything is just going to be, and there's a million yous and there's a million me's, and we're all doing something different. It's just like, what? How do I do this?
Yeah.
But what?
Yeah, it's too chaotic, I think.
But what my thought is on this, on the daughter universe thing, and this, quantum suicide and this, quantum immortality. I think that in some fashion, this can make you believe in things like a soul. That this is just a physical body that we inhabit for a short period of time. And that when your physical body dies, like a lot of, a lot of scientists believe, hey, once you're dead, you're worm food. It's over. There's nothing else. Okay. But if science can embrace something like this, why can't it embrace the idea that, our consciousness can somehow live on and move through, another universe, or that it's currently doing so.
Yeah.
And that in another universe, one of your choices led to your death. You chose to eat, this particular thing that caused you to have a disease or to, get sick. You didn't look at the light twice and you ran out in front and you got T-boned by an 18-wheeler, whatever. You're dead in another universe, but yet you live on in all these other ones.
Right.
Okay. When you start thinking on those terms, you're like, okay, somehow my conscious keeps moving.
Well, it's like I think what you're saying is kind of what I've thought. Let's say your soul or your consciousness is this pizza, and you pull pieces of the pizza off and put it in different bodies. So it's all the same consciousness, but it's been split up throughout all the universes into small pieces.
Yeah.
Right. And that goes along with, this is a movie, and I forgot what the movie was, and you may know it when I describe it, but each time you die in another universe, one of your other bodies gets stronger because that part of your consciousness jumps to all the rest of them.
Yeah.
So in this movie, the guy figured out how to jump from universes and kill himself in all the other universes so that there was only one of him left, and he obtained all the power from all the hymns in all the other universes.
I've never seen this movie.
Okay, I can't remember what the movie is. Somebody out there tweet at us or email us and tell us what this movie is, because I can't remember the name. But he basically figured that out. And so every time you die in another universe, that part of you would jump to the rest of them, kind of divide out. Right. Yeah. So that's kind of what you're thinking, it's like what you're going off of.
You got 1 million Horcruxes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a little piece of you is in all of it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So let's move on to the last.
Yes, let's.
Yes. To the last possible thing here before we get into what some people say debunks this, and then the last couple thoughts that we have on it. The last one I got here is mathematical universes. Now, scientists have debated whether mathematics is simply a useful tool for describing the universe, or whether math itself is the fundamental reality, and our observations of the universe are just imperfect perceptions of its true mathematical nature. If the latter is the case, then perhaps the particular mathematical structure that makes up our universe isn't the only option, and in fact, all possible mathematical structures exist as their own separate universe. This says, quote, "A mathematical structure is something that you can describe in a way that's completely independent of human baggage," says Max Tegmark of MIT, who proposed this brain-twisting idea. He says, "I really believe that there is this universe out there that can exist independently of me, that would continue to exist even if there were no humans."
Yeah. Well, so the idea
that ties into other ones.
Yeah, there is one universal language, and it's math.
Math. Yep.
That's it. I mean, it doesn't matter, if English, Spanish, German, Russian, Chinese, it doesn't matter. Math is constant. 2 + 2 = 4, no matter where you are on the planet, no matter what language you speak. And that is a communication that everybody can understand. And it doesn't change. That's the same here as it is in, Russia, as it is in Africa, as it is in Siberia, as it is in Brazil, whatever. It doesn't matter. Those are standards, and they don't change, and everybody can communicate in those terms. So, in some aspects, math is the only reality. It's the only thing we know 100% is constant.
Right.
And it would be, and at least in my opinion, the way that you're going to explain anything about the universe. It's going to be in mathematical terms.
Sure. And it's the way that they say we can communicate with aliens is through mathematics, because they won't understand English or Japanese or anything, but they'll understand math.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of the probes we've sent out that have held, notes to other life forms has been in mathematics. But before we get into some people not agreeing with the multiverse thing, there's a couple other things that we didn't touch on in talking about the other ones, and I wanted to do that real quick. One is I talked about, cryptids could be from neighboring universes, right, and coming in. Well, Linda Godfrey, you know who she is. She's the author and researcher that did Beast of Bray Road and Real Wolfmen and all that stuff. Linda Godfrey actually recounts a ton of dogmen encounters that are associated with portal-like openings. So where they have dogmen encounters, the person seeing that actually sees it either step out of a portal, or there's a portal over next to it somewhere. Mm-hmm. There's a shimmering weird field that kind of disrupts, whatever. So there's some description of a portal type thing being there when they see these dogmen. That's not in all of them, but it's in several of them. So like in the Skinwalker Ranch area, where he saw like Bigfoot stepping out of a portal, or he saw an alien portal open up and a ship come out of that portal, right? Why do we have the recounting of a portal being there with dogmen sightings if it's not like stepping through the tunnel, like the brain worlds theory that we were talking about? It's stepping through a little hole coming from a neighboring dimension, one slice of bread up from us, and it's coming over here, either for fun, to play with us humans, or to hunt, or just as a vacation. It's going to come over here and screw with us humans, or just by accident, it stumbles through this portal and doesn't know what's going on, and that also, to me, could explain 411 happenings, 411 disappearances.
Absolutely.
Because like we talked about in other episodes, they're walking along and they step through a portal and they end up in the neighboring universe, one plane up from us, and they stay there until they can fumble back into ours or something like, So to me, that's we have so many things that point to it being possible that we have the brain world's version of the multiverse, just like that.
Right.
And something a question I wanted to ask you, Matt. Have remote viewers been able to see things in other universes? Like, we get the stories of these remote viewers seeing bases on Mars or seeing bases on the moon, and there being people on Mars, but it's not in our universe. So is that in the future? Or could that actually be them remote viewing Mars in a separate parallel universe that actually does have habitation on it now?
Right.
And a lot of these weird remote viewing things that we think, that's a lie, or they're seeing into the future or the past or something. What if they're just remote viewing in another dimension? Is that any less plausible than anything else?
No, I don't think so. Because, some of the most skilled remote viewers have seen things that they cannot explain. I mean, more than just being able to describe an object or, a target, as they call it, with some level of accuracy. When they're given these coordinates, for places like Mars or even further, they're really seeing things that, could they be making them up? Sure. But, it doesn't feel that way. And the way it affects them, they're seeing something that is beyond what their consciousness can comprehend. And, it becomes more and more difficult to describe what's going on, or even why it would be going on, because outside of our universe, the laws of physics and reality that we know of are different. And so it makes that universe even more foreign. And, so when these remote viewers are coming back going, look, we saw bases on Mars, and, we're like, well, there aren't bases on Mars, at least not to us. So what did you really see? Well, I really saw all this stuff that just, I can't explain, and I'm not making it up, but I mean, this is what I'm getting from it. And so they may be pulling data because, remember at its heart, remote viewing is turning yourself into an antenna for the universe, pulling data.
Exactly.
Well, what if you're pulling data that is not necessarily in this universe? You may have a target that's right here, but the data that you're pulling in, that you're allowing in, is from multiple universes.
Yep. 1 or 2 planes up.
Right.
Same geographical position, but another plane.
Exactly. So again, if you're gonna embrace this idea that there's a possibility of a multiverse, regardless of what theory you may think works, or you may have your own, then you can open up your mind to this idea that a remote viewer could be pulling data from all the planes,
right,
or at least the ones that are up against ours at its closest.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Like I was saying, we do have people that don't believe there are multiple universes. So this says that people they got their own ideas, and a 2015 article on Medium by astrophysicist Ethan Siegel agreed that space-time could go on forever in theory, but said that there are some limitations with that idea. The key problem is the universe is just under 14 billion years old, so our universe's age itself is obviously not infinite, but a finite amount. This would, simply put, limit the number of possibilities for particles to rearrange themselves, and sadly make it less possible that your alternate self did get on that plane, after all, to go see China. Mm-hmm. Also, the expansion at the beginning of the universe took place exponentially because there was so much, quote, energy inherent to space itself, he said, but over time, that inflation obviously slowed. Those particles of matter created at the Big Bang are not continuing to expand, he pointed out. Among his conclusions, that means that multiverses would have different rates of inflation in different times, longer or shorter, for inflation. This decreases the possibilities of universes similar to our own. Quote, even setting aside issues that there may be an infinite number of possible values for fundamental constants, particles, and interactions, and even setting aside interpretation issues such as whether the many worlds interpretation actually describes our physical reality, Siegel said, the fact of the matter is that the number of possible outcomes rises so quickly, so much faster than merely exponentially, that unless inflation has been occurring for a truly infinite amount of time, there are no parallel universes identical to this one. Now, here's my problem with this line of thought. It's that he's assuming we know everything we need to know about the creation of the universe, that our understanding of the Big Bang is correct. This is how he's extrapolating this data. And I think it's possible that we could be way off on our understanding of what actually happened and what is happening. And all we're seeing is just what our view and our universe allows us to see. So I think that's my fundamental problem with what he says, is he's saying, well, we know exactly how the universe started. It was this blue bang. And then, well, again, like Matt and I were saying initially, nobody knows everything.
That's right.
Nobody knows exactly how this universe started. And sure, our data could say one thing, but it could be way off. Yeah. And so that would throw his theory way off.
Yeah. And, when we're talking about people that, just kind of say, hey, this, I don't really think that this is a possibility. So we're kind of playing devil's advocate here. So from, physicist Paul Davies, who's the director of the Beyond Center for the Fundamental Concepts in Science at Arizona State University. What a department.
Oh yeah.
The Beyond Center for Fundamental Concepts in Science.
Dude, a lot of these
now,
departments I couldn't even pronounce to be a part of them, you know.
But you know, Davies has some interesting points. You know, he says, you know, to get a multiverse, he says you've got to have a universe generating mechanism. Something's got to make the big bangs go bang. Okay, something's got to make it work.
Like a fuse for dynamite.
Yeah, and he says in order to do that, you're going to have some laws of physics. And he said all of the theories that we've talked about tonight, all of the multiverse, they assume that quantum physics provides the element of spontaneity that makes the big bangs happen. So he says they're making an assumption that there's pre-existing space and time, that it's already there, that there was no beginning, that it's just always been there, space and time always there, and that this is just something that's happening. So he's like, so where do you get that? You know, it's just an assumption. So he makes this point. Where do all the laws come from? And he's talking about the laws of physics. What about those meta laws that generate from all of the universes in the first place? Where do they come from? Where's the beginning point? Where's the initiation? You know, then what about the laws or meta laws that impose, you know, diverse laws on other universes? So it works this way, you know, gravity pulls like this, which causes all these things to react this way. Okay, right here. But if we're saying in another universe, then the laws of physics may be totally different. Where do we get that? You know, where's our initiation for what laws are going to govern this universe and what laws are going to govern that universe and our own?
Yeah.
He says, so, you know, he says the multi-universe theory shifts the problem of existence from up the level of one universe to the level of, we got a bunch of this stuff, but nobody's explained it. Everybody just says it's a possibility. It's a theory that it could be possible. What Davey says is, okay, but that's like, you know, me saying, you know, it's possible that I could walk through this brick wall. Okay.
Yeah.
Theoretically in science, if your molecules did X, Y, and Z and your atoms did this, you could walk through this wall. Okay. But how? Explain it. Yeah. Explain what would happen. Otherwise, it's just a thought. And in reality, Davies isn't wrong. He's not. It's just a thought. Now, granted, a lot of these quantum physicists that put out the theory that it could be possibility, again, it's, you know, they're looking at evidence that, like I said at the top of the show, makes my head hurt. But it's still just a thought. It's still just an idea, you know, to help kind of explain our universe or our universes.
The weirdness that we see.
I kind of came up with this analogy. So, you know, what he's saying essentially is, you know, using the multiverse as an answer for any question is like answering a question with a question. Or it's like getting the correct answer on a math problem without showing your work. You either knew it from the get-go, somehow. You knew. You looked at a problem and you said, the answer is this. Or you guessed it. But there's no evidence to support either one. Right. You know, there's not enough evidence to say, bam, this is what it is, or no, it's not. So again, you know, it's just an idea. And, you know, he doesn't like the idea of taking this and saying, we're going to explain how things work with this multiverse theory, because he says you don't have enough evidence to even show that that's a possibility.
Yeah, we can't explain how things work with the multiverse theory because we can't explain how the multiverse theory works.
Exactly. You know, answering a question with a question, you know.
A theory with a theory.
But like we said at the top of the show, this is the kind of stuff that really really boggles the mind, but it's a lot of fun to just kind of sit back and speculate the possibilities and the potential of, what effect this has had on our current existence. The idea that, cryptids or aliens cross over into our universe, into our existence, and then go back. It's fascinating to me. And I love talking about this stuff. I love theorizing. I didn't love digging down deep because, like I said, it's difficult to understand even what evidence that physicists are putting out there. And I mean, we probably have listeners that understand this far better than we do.
Sure. And one of the reasons Matt and I wanted to do this episode is not just to make us feel stupider, but
we don't need multiverse theory to do that.
Amen. Now we talk about so many different things on this show, whether it come, time travel, out of body experiences, the Philadelphia experiment, cryptozoology, and all that. And, we've had the multiverse theory on our topic list for quite a while, but we decided to do it now because we started talking about the Philadelphia experiment and could that, and how that kind of ties into this because of the time travel and the disappearance and all that other stuff. But it's something that we want you guys to think about and retroactively put it on some of our other episodes, like our cryptozoological episodes, and which one of these could explain those, and, near-death experiences and all that. What's happening? Could it be one of these theoretical multiverses that we're seeing into, or that something's coming over? Alien episodes that we've done, abductions,
shadow people.
And we want you shadow people. Absolutely. And, that's something that can be a teaser, Matt. That's something we're going to talk about on our live stream.
Exactly. Yeah.
So if you want to hear us go more into that, then, join us on the live stream on October 30th, but also take this episode and carry it with you into future Graveyard Tales episodes. And, Matt and I always do this on every episode. We behind the scenes talk about the different universes and could this be coming from another universe and da-da-da-da-da. But hold these theories in your head when we go on further through Graveyard Tales and say, okay, well, maybe this experience explains the brain worlds theory. Maybe this experience explains the daughter universes theory. And, one extra little piece of information in your belt there that can kind of help you in discussions about these different topics that we'll discuss in the future.
Yeah, I mean, you can even go into things like dragons. Not necessarily a cryptid. I mean, we're talking about a mythical creature, unicorns. What if we all kind of have this idea that it came from somewhere? Did somebody one person just make it up and then it spread from there? Or were people at some point having an experience with, some kind of creature that, led us today to what we know as dragons and unicorns and all this other kind of stuff? Are these creatures, do they exist in another universe?
And a population came over to ours and couldn't get back.
Right.
And then died out.
They did exist here. And they defy our laws of physics. An animal that could breathe fire.
Giant lizard that breathes fire and flies.
Right. But again, if we're thinking, okay, the laws of physics that we know may not work in another universe, and it may be totally different. Maybe they do exist. Maybe they did cross over at some point in history, and that's where the whole legend of dragons comes from. Somebody saw one at one point and said, "Hey, what the hell was that?"
Yeah.
But even like Adam mentioned the Philadelphia experiment, and we talked about Al Bielek, who who supposedly time traveled, 700 years in the future, and the world was totally different, and it appeared to be the same planet, but maybe not. Maybe when he jumped off, the USS Eldridge and didn't land in the water and woke up in a hospital, hundreds of years into the future, maybe he didn't. Maybe he just fell into another universe and it was parallel to ours, and that's where he was.
Yeah, their time was 21, whatever it was, and he just landed there, and it's so similar he couldn't tell that he went to another universe.
Right.
But he actually did.
Yeah. So if you want to hear more about that particular story, we've got a Patreon episode on Al Bialik and how this thing came about and how how the Philadelphia experiment was generated, and you can listen to our time travel episode to hear the stories that Bialik experienced while he was in these other years.
Right.
And it's amazing, but it does kind of fit into this idea that he's not traveling in a linear time frame. He's traveling through dimensions, and the year is different, and things don't work exactly the same. And to him, maybe it was just, wow, technology has really advanced. Well, maybe technology is different in this other universe. Things work differently.
Right.
Somebody wants to elevate build a building with 3,000 floors, and they have to levitate it every 100 floors to keep it from collapsing on itself. That's not a big issue in another universe. Right. And you'll hear more about that in these other episodes, but go back and give them a listen. And like Adam said, apply what we're talking about tonight to what you've heard us talk about in the past, and see what fits. I mean, I'm sure there's things that we're leaving out that another listener may say, what, y'all talked about this, what about that? Does multiverse theory fit? And maybe it does, but we'd love to hear it and share that with us.
Oh yeah.
You can call and leave us a voicemail. You can tweet at us. You can find us on Facebook, and get in our Facebook group. It's great, and discussions like this happen all the time.
That's the best place for this type of discussion. In this Facebook group.
Absolutely.
And invite your friends and family into it, because we're, like we said at the top of the show, we're getting up on Halloween. So let's bring family members into the graveyard. As they say, everyone's dying to get in the graveyard. So bring more people into the graveyard. Let's grow the graveyard, and let's have these discussions in our Facebook group.
Absolutely. And while you're at it, you can check out our website. It's graveyardpodcast.com. And on our website, you can listen to the show. You can find out a little bit more about Adam and myself. You can find links to buy Graveyard Tales merchandise. I am wearing one of my new Graveyard Tales t-shirts tonight.
There you go.
You can get your own. You can get it on a coffee mug or a baby onesie or a poster, whatever you like. And you can also become a patron. And we like to, take a moment every show and thank those of you that have donated your hard-earned money to help support Adam and myself. We really appreciate it. It's what keeps us going. Don't forget to go rate and review us on iTunes. That's what brings us up the charts, and it makes people makes it easier for people to find us. And if you're in a different universe and you're hearing this, whatever iTunes is, go rate and review us there. So
yep, exactly.
So anyway,
get us up the universal charts.
So my head hurts.
Mine too, man. I need a drink or something.
So, until next time, we'll save you a seat in the graveyard.
See you soon. All right. Oh, Taco Bell. Sorry. All right, try that again.